Hakadosh Boker Or, Daf Yomi Masechet Batra Daf 86A1. We were just speaking about the entire concept right now, where Rava wanted to bring a proof. Rava says, Tashema, if you're going to be Moshech, which means that you came and you brought it inside of your house. Right? Remember, Rava is trying to bring a proof that the kelim of the lokeach in the reshut of the mocher, in the property of the mocher, is not going to be koneh. So he comes and he says, so if you came and you did meshicha to the chamor, right, you brought it into your house, pasak, if whether it's going to be pasak at shelo madad or madad shelo pasak, you could always retract. Why? Because there was no kinyan still. So he comes and he says, pirkan, if right now they came and they were mefarek, which means that they came and they he how do you call it? He took off the thing, the load, right? And then what happened was is that he put it inside of his house. Pasak ad shelo madad, if they did the psak of the money ad shelo madad and shlem yocholim lechazor ben. But if it was madad shelo pasak, why? Because if you remember, we said that the most important was the fixing of the price, not the amount that you took. Meaning the concept is that I have to come and fix the price. What's the price? $1 per pound. I don't care if it's going to be afterwards. I didn't know that it was 4 pounds, 3.5 pounds, 4.2 pounds. That doesn't matter. But I know how much is the fixed price per pound. But if I know that it's three pounds of weight, but I don't know the price, so that's not considered a psak. That's not considered something that I cannot retract. Why? Because all of a sudden you're going to give me a crazy price. I'm going to tell you, get out of here. That's crazy price. So, okay, right? So just like the kelim of the mocher in the reshut of the lokeach, you do not acquire. So to the kelim of the lokeach in the reshut of the mocher, you're not going to acquire. So Amar of Nachman ben Yitzchak says of Nachman ben Yitzchak, the sheshovchan. Really, man, what we're talking about is that you poured out the perot from the sakim, right, into your house, and that's why the lokeach is going to acquire it. But if be'emet he were still in his kelim, so really be'emet he's not going to acquire it. So ikpad Rabba, right? Rabba comes and he was makpid. What does it mean he was makpid? Rabba comes and he was makpid in the words of Nachman ben Yitzchak, because he went and he said, Midish shavchan ktani pirkan ktani. He says, you're making an ukimta, a shavchan, that you poured it out, or that you were it doesn't say anything. Ela more baravashi, but rather more baravashi says, Bemitachle de tume. We're talking about chavilot of shum. Shum is garlic, right? That they come and they sell them the way that they are. Right, without putting them bichlal in a sack, in a bag. So therefore, that's why it's not going to be in the kelim of the mocher in such a case, and therefore obviously he's going to acquire it. So Amar le'erhuna bered morzut ravina michte pirkan ktini mali pasak mali lo pasak. 1 second. If you're going to tell me, right, if that it is pirkan, which means that the perot are now in the reshut of the lokeach, because you took them off of the donkey and you put them in your property. So therefore, what do I care now in pasak or lo pasak? At the end of the day, why doesn't he acquire it? Right? It's already in his reshut, and once it's in his reshut, he's acquiring it with kinyan chatzer. So Elmaleh says pasak samchadate, lo pasak lo samchadate. What does that mean? If you're going to be posek the mechir, so then there's a smichut dat you're going to take it. He says, but until then, you're not going to take it. So therefore, right? He's saying that that's the difference between them. Because if I'm going to come and I'm going to put it in my property, so that's nothing. Why? Because you're going to give me a crazy price. I'm going to say, no, you know what? I'm going to give it back. I have it in my property. Doesn't matter because I don't have it, right? So therefore, so for sure, he comes and he says that's going to be the difference between pasak and lo pasak. So Amale Ravina Ravashi, he says Ravina to Ravashi, Tashema, we're going to come and we're going to bring a proof. Taravu Shmuel Damri Tavai, Rav and Shmuel both said, Kela Kelio Shel Adam Konelu Bechol Makom, that basically your utensils are acquiring it any place. Bechol Makom, doesn't matter where you are. In the Reshut HaLokeach, Reshut HaMocher, in Reshut, doesn't matter, you're always going to acquire. So he comes and he says, Amale, he says, 1 second. Or what is that coming to include? We're not talking about that it's going to include the reshut of the mocher. So he says no. Hatam damale zil kni. If he tells them the words zil kni, which means go and make a kinyan, then you're right. In achanami. But if not, as long as he didn't say zil kani, go and make a kinyan, it's not. The seller tells the buyer. So if he comes and he tells the buyer, go and make a kinyan, in achanami, you're right. So then even if it's going to be in the property of the mocher, meaning the property of the seller, but he told him make a kinyan. So once he told him make a kinyan, that's it. That's going to be a good kinyan. We learned over there in the Mishnah, if you remember, we learned in Kiddushin that when you have properties which have achrayut, which means karka, they are going to be acquired with kesef shtar chazaka, with money, a document, or chazaka. She'en lahem achrayut metaltalin, right, which basically does not have achrayut because basically they're movable, they could just disappear and you don't have to find out about them. So therefore, any klim mishicha, it has to be done with mishicha. So in Surah they taught us in the name of Chasta, and Pubadita they taught in the name of Rav Kahana. Or some people say it was in the name of Rava. But that's only if you do not do Agba'ah. Meaning when we said that you're going to be koneh, metaltali, meshicha, that's only going to be if it's not normal to do Agba'ah. But if you do Agba'ah, it's not. So for example, a phone you do Agba'ah, right? You don't do meshicha. So if I'm going to come and I'm going to take it from the store and I'm going to pull it towards me, I didn't acquire it because it's meshicha. So therefore, right? No, so it's something which is derech, right? So therefore, he comes and he says any movable object, even though we just said that metaltalin is going to be done meshicha, no, it's not true. Metaltalin is only meshicha if it's not the derech to do agba'ah. But if the derech is to do agba'ah, so therefore obviously you do agba'ah. So obviously a para you don't do agba'ah. So obviously it's going to be meshicha. So Yati Rabbi v'kamal hashmata. So Rabbi was sitting and he said this shmata, this braita. The eighth way Ravada bar Matan Abaye. So asked Ravada bar Matan to Abaye, Hagonev kis b'Shabbat. If somebody is going to steal a money pouch on Shabbat, he's going to be chayav. Shekvar nitchayev begneva kodem sheyavo lidei yisur Shabbat, because he's first going to be chayav in the gneva before, right, the isur of the Shabbat. Meaning, remember that in order to say kim lebedraba mine, well, you know what kim lebedraba mine is. Kim lebedraba mine means is that you're going to give them the stricter punishment of death and not one punishment, basically the death and not the money. But that's only going to be if they came at the same time. He says what happens is the chiyuv of mammon is already in the reshut yachid. Chiyuv of mita is only when he takes it out to the reshut rabim. Meaning when he stole it, he's already chayav for the stealing in the reshut yachid. But when he's going to come and he's going to take it out to the reshut rabim, then he's chayav Shabbat. So therefore he has to do both. He has to pay plus get killed. Why? Usually we give you the stricter punishment because it didn't come at the same time. First you were chayav paying, and only afterwards you're chayav on being killed. Right? Of course, he has to pay and get killed. Okay? It's an issue, but it's muktzeh. I can't do anything to you. What am I going to do? I'll give you lashes. I can't do anything. There's nothing to do with anything. Right? Remember, muktzeh is the rabbanam. We're talking about doraitas. Right? Killing is only on a doraita. We'll never kill you on a dorabana. Yeah? So he says, megarer v'yotze. What happens though if he's megarer is on the karka until he gets to the reshut rabim? Now he's going to be patur. Why? Because when he's dragging it along in the reshut rabim, he never actually made a kinyan. So now when it comes into the reshut rabim, now he's chayav both of them at the same time. He's chayav on the reshut rabim plus he's chayav on the stealing. But he was only chayav on the stealing when in the reshut rabim, because he didn't do agba'ah in the reshut of the ganav. So therefore, right? He comes and he says, 1 second, kis is dvar agbahu. What do you do with a wallet? You pick it up. So if you're not going to be koneh b'mishicha, so therefore here we just said that you're going to be koneh b'mishicha. Because we said, when are you acquiring it? When you took it out to the reshut rabim with the greda. And 1 second, what is that? Mishicha. But 1 second, how does that work? You just told me that it does not work the mishicha plus the thing because it helps hagbah. So what's going on? So Elmaleh, he answers b'mitna. What are you talking about? You have a ritzua, meaning it's like one of those wallets that you have like a string which is attached to it. So therefore you're pulling it in the way that it's normally done. The ana nami mitna kamina. So I'm also talking about the same thing, that we have this string. So Elmaleh, he says b'midid the by mitna. We're talking about something that needs a string. So for example, obviously we're talking about like a big type of wallet. We're not talking about some small little tiny wallet, but then you just pick it up. We're talking about something that you need the string in order to come and to pull it along. Because obviously we're talking about something big. But if we're talking about something small, you just pick it up. Okay? Fine. Tashema. We're going to try to bring a proof now. Birshut mocher lo kana. Remember that we were going to be in the reshut of the mocher. We're not going to acquire it until you do agba'ah. Until you take it out of the reshut. Alma sisi from here. Here it's mashma. You either do agba'ah or you do meshicha. One more time. We said there in Kiddushin that metaltali nechasim sheyesh lahem achrayut, which is karka, kesef, shtan, and chazaka. Nechasim she'en lahem achrayut, which is metaltalin, right? What are you going to do? Meshicha. He said, no, that's only if you cannot do Hagbah. But if the normal is to do Hagbah, it's Hagbah. Here it's mashma. You could do or Hagbah or Meshicha. Yeah. So he says, Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak, says of Nachman bar Yitzchak, what are we talking about? He says, Litzadin Ktani. He says, you have to actually say, oh. What does it mean, oh? He says, Mida debar Hagbah, Hagbah. Mida debar Meshicha, Meshicha. It all depends what that item is. If the item is going to be for right Hagbah, it's Hagbah. And if the item is going to be for Meshicha, it's Meshicha. Depends what the item is. Meaning, you're going to have to ask me, what is the item? I'm going to tell you, is it Hagbah or Meshicha? But it's or, right? Fine. So Tashima, Peva Mamumet, 86b. Amocher pero lechavero. If you're going to sell fruits to your friend, Mashach velo madad kana. If you did Meshicha and you do not do Medida, you're going to acquire it. Ve'a perot, te bnei Hagbah ninu. He says, perot or bnei Hagbah. What does it mean bnei Hagbah? Right? When you come and you have these perot, right? It's mamash, it's bnei Hagbah. The Ktani, right? And we already learned the Kanim and Meshicha. You come and you're going to acquire it with Meshicha. So 1 second. Fruits, you pick, right? He says, right? What do you usually do with fruits? You pick them up. You go to Publix. You don't pull it. You pick it up, and then you're going to put it to the cashier. Then you're going to pick it up again. You're going to take it's Hagbah. So why did he say Mashach velo madad? Well, he said, I don't understand. He said Meshicha. And now he's saying Kana. Meshicha Kana. Why? So answers the Gemara, what are we dealing with? Ishlife ravreve. We're talking about chavilot gdolot of perot, right? So therefore, we're talking about big bags that is difficult to pick them up. So for again, it's going to be Meshicha. So it makes sense. So says the Gemara, 1 second. Remember, whenever we're going to apply that, you have to apply that to the Seifa as well. So says the Gemara, 1 second. So let's see the latter part of the Mishnah. Halokeach. Right? Pishtan mechaviro. If you're going to purchase pishtan, flax from your friend, you're not going to acquire it until you're going to move it from one place to another. Atu pishtan b'shlifer. He says what? Pishtan, they don't make big chavilot, just like they do by shal perot. Why is it now here, right, that we're saying that you're not going to be acquiring it with meshicha? Because he says here you have to do tiltul mimakom makom. He says, which means you're not going to acquire it with meshicha, only bagba'ah. Meaning you have to actually pick it up. Yeah. So answers the Gemara. He says, Shana pishtan de mishtamet. He says pishtan is different than other fruits because it's machlik. What does that mean? You cannot make big bags, right? Big things out of it. So therefore, it's always small. So therefore, you're always going to do hagbah since you only do hagbah. So it doesn't help meshicha on something that you could do hagbah. So Amale Ravina Ravashi Tashma. Let's bring another proof then. It says be'magasa, right? They spoke about beforehand the cow. Right, but any behema gasa, it could be an ox, it could be a bull, a big, right? Behema gasa nikne b'mesira, v'adaka b'agba. Those are the words of Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Chachamim say behema daka is going to be b'meshicha. So he says 1 second. Behema daka b'atagbahi, right? So why did you say meshicha? Yeah. Remember, when it's a behema daka, you pick it up usually. It's a small animal, so you could pick it up. So if you pick it up, why do we say you could help, right? Meshicha. So he says, Shane Behema, it's different to Dina Behema, the Sarcha, right? Because basically the legs are going to be on the ground, which means it's true. You could pick it up, but it's difficult to pick up the animal because the animal basically, since it's trying to put its legs on the ground, so for it's grabbing onto the ground. So therefore the derech is going to be Meshicha, and therefore it's also acquired also with Meshicha, right? It's basically a natural tendency that if you have something going down, right? So therefore, what happens is that if you're going to pick it up, it's more difficult to pick up, right? Because it's resisting to pick it up. Okay? Rav and Shmuel come and they say, right? They both say, Kur, imagine right now, a person comes and he tells his friend, I'm going to sell to you a kur of perot. Remember, a kur is shloshim seah, 30 seah. Okay? So that means it's a measurement for 30 slain. So I'm selling you 30 seah for 30 slain. One seah per seah, right? You could retract even until the last one, meaning we start counting. So 1, 2, 3, 4 until the last time. I could still retract. Why? Because since at the end of the day you didn't measure the entire thing, so therefore you could retract. So he comes and he says, but if he told him Kur b'shloshim seah b'sela ani mochel lecha, rishon kana. If he told them, I'm going to sell you the Kur B'Shoshim, but I'm going to sell you $1 each one, because that's what I told you the calculation was, 1 selah per seah. So if he actually said 1 selah per seah, Rishon Kana, he gets one, he only 30. So since he only told him 30, so therefore he's only going to acquire it after he finishes the 30. Okay? So now he comes and he says like this, Tashima. Okay? What happens right now if you have the midah of one of them, right, of the lokeach or the mocher, meaning that one person, whether it's the seller or the buyer, it belonged to him, this measuring tool. Rishon kana, even though it did not fill up the amount. Meaning like this, I'm going to come and I'm going to tell you this, I'm going to sell you 20 pounds of something. And I give you 1 pound. 2, 3, 4, 5. Until I don't get to the 20, I didn't finish the sale because I didn't deliver. The delivery is only after you finish, right? The entire amount. No. But if I come and I tell you 30 for seller, but 1 each, each one you're acquiring. So he comes and he says, here though, if the measuring utensil belongs to one of them, it's 1 by 1, even though it didn't fill up. So says the Gemara, no, you know what the case was over there, because here it's mashma that it all depends who does it belong to, the measuring utensil. Nothing to do with whether you divided it and said 1 by 1 or not. So he says, what are we talking about? Hin b'shnei masar slaim. You went and you told him a 1 hin, which is again, this is like 12 log. Okay, one hin is 12 log, right? Revi ta'in, 1/4 of a hin, right? That's the measurement. So he says b'shnei masar slaim, right? Velog b'sela ani muchalecha. The exact same thing. Because one more time, if I'm going to tell you 1 hin, which equals 12 logs, and I'm going to sell it to you for 12 slaim, so obviously 1 log is per selah, the exact same thing, $1 each one. So if it's going to be each one, so therefore you separated it. Once you separate it, it's 1 by 1. Just like Rav Kana says, shnatot hayu bahin, right? They used to have different like teeth, right? What does that mean, teeth, right? You know, like you have a utensil, right? And on the utensil, on the measuring utensil, you have things sticking out, right?
Like to read a paper, for example, like aluminum foil, like
No. You're talking about something sharp, not sharp. A measuring cup. In a measuring cup, there's something that sticks out, right? Nowadays, for example, when you go to CVS and you want to buy how do you call this? And you don't buy it, even if you do buy it, or they give it to you, the syringe, right? It's not sticking out; it's printed. So many times after a little bit of time, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mils, it erases because it's not sticking out. It's a print. The olden days, or even nowadays, many of them, you have the measuring stick, the measuring whatever it is, the cup or whatever it is, and it's like engraved but outward or inward. It's like yeah. Well, the engraving is a charita, but it's either on the outside or sometimes on the inside, depends what it is. And therefore, it's not a print. So that's what it is. Shnatot ayubahim. They had these shnatot for the korbanot, right? Blitot, right? Why? He says in order to know how much was a chetziahim, shalishahim, revahim. Why? Because there was nesachim. You have the niske par, niske ail, and niske keves. Every type of the nesachim had different amounts. So the niske par was half of a hin. The niske ail was a shlishahim, and the niske keves was revahim. So each one was a third, a quarter, right, or a half. Third, quarter, and a half. So I have to know how much is the third. I have to know how much is the quarter. How much is the half. So to here shnatot ayubamidot. Since it was shnatot, right, in it, which means that you had these blitot, these things which are sticking out, showing you the measurements. So therefore, he comes and he says, when it says Rishon Kona, that's what it means, that every single log he was acquiring, because it already got to that one, meaning that I finished that measure. Because if there's no blitot, and it only has on the top 1 liter, I only know when it gets to 1 liter. But if in the middle it had a half a liter, a quarter of a liter, and a third of a liter, so I already know that it will go to a quarter. I already know when it got to a third. I already know when it got to there. So therefore, you already know according to the utensil when it actually gets there. So Tashema, if I'm going to apply the exact same rule, again, we're talking about that as long as you didn't finish the job or finish the amount, you're still in the middle. You can retract. But if it's going to be at the end, no. So he says, 1 second. Imagine right now you come and you tell a guy, listen, you're going to work for me. Hayom b'dinar, today for a dinar, right? V'lagoren yafeh sela. Now, the onata goren, it's actually worth a sela, which is 4 dinarim for every single day. But the poel was maskin. He was only, I'm only going to take 1. So what happens, right? So he comes and he says, "Asur lehenot menu." He says it's asur for the barabai to benefit from the poel, right? Because then he comes and he says, right, but if he's going to work so cheap, it looks like rebit. And therefore, it's like basically that the guy it looks like he's taking interest, because obviously it's not the price of the guy. He's paying him 1/4 of what he really has to teach him, right? What he has to pay him. So therefore, since it looks like rebit, you're not allowed to do that. But if he does it from today, right, for a dinar a day, then it's going to be permitted. The Gemara is going to ask why, what's the difference, obviously, between the two different cases and what exactly is going on.